Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, when it comes to going public, our area is lacking, and some say that's a problem for the Cincinnati economy. Initial public stock offerings are actually IPOs in Cincinnati. Greater Cincinnati has had just 3 IPOs in the past 15 years, according to data from IPO research firm Renaissance Capital. That ranks Cincinnati last among 8 similar regional cities. Pittsburgh, Nashville, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Milwaukee each had more than 10 IPOs since 2000. Companies like Total Quality Logistics are good candidates for an IPO, but they're simply not interested. So why is Cincinnati missing out when it comes to IPOs? Well, first, it's costly. Second, Cincinnati doesn't have many companies in technology, and that's one of the hottest IPO sectors. And a third reason is Cincinnati has a lot of family businesses with owners who don't want to lose control of their firms and invite the scrutiny that comes from going public. From an economic vitality standpoint, some say a lack of IPOs hurts Cincinnati. Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins wrote this story and joins Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio with more. Steve and Kelly.
Thanks, Peg. Steve, thanks for coming in this morning.
Sure.
So why does this matter? Why is this a bad thing, and what do IPOs bring to a city?
There are quite a few reasons, actually. It is a big deal for the city and for the economy. One is these companies, by definition, really are high-growth companies. Their revenues and their profits often are growing really rapidly. That's why investors want to buy into it. So that's a big deal, obviously, to have in the community. Also, it creates a lot of jobs. AtriCure is the company that was the last real startup locally in 2005. Its jobs have doubled since it went public in 2005 to 320.
Wow.
So that's a big deal, and creates a lot of wealth too. I mean, you hear about all these IPOs on TV, and the stock rises a lot. The directors, managers, and employees with stock options all tend to make a lot of money if the stock does well, and in many cases it does. So it's a real big deal.
So Peg mentioned all those other cities that are ahead of us. Is that surprising that we're lagging?
It actually was. It was funny when I talked to a lot of the people that are in the business, they're venture capital people or they're lawyers and accountants that help companies go public. Their first answer was, well, other than the West Coast, I don't think there are that many cities that have that many of these IPOs. They figured just everybody was low, but when you look at the numbers, I mean, a lot of these cities have triple the number of IPOs we have. So it was surprising to a lot of people.
So how do we solve this problem? How do we get more?
Yeah, that's the big question. There are a couple things that the people I talked to really highlighted. One is that we really need more venture capital, seed capital, really early stage money to help these companies grow before they're to the point of going public. I likened it to the Reds farm system. You've got a lot of minor leaguers. A few are going to make the majors, not all of them. But the more prospects you have, the better chance you have of a few hitting the IPO. So a lot of it goes back to the startup community too, where just the more high-growth startup companies we have, the better chance we have. And we are headed toward that with companies like Centrifuge and CincyTech investing in the early stages.
So quickly, one last question. Any companies in line that are candidates to become IPOs?
There are, yeah. The people I talked to highlighted, one is AssureX. It's a company in Mason and does genetic testing, and that company's growing like wildfire. They didn't say that they were thinking about going public, but they're a typical candidate. It's venture-backed in Cincinnati. Another good candidate, I did talk to the CEO, Bob Coughlin of Paycor, a payroll services company here. It's been around about 25 years. It's on a real high growth track, and he said in a couple of years they are seriously considering in a couple of years taking that IPO step.
Okay, and I think you mentioned a few more in the print edition, so folks need to check that out for the full story. Thanks, Steve. And